This is OCR Level 2 in Sport, Learning Objective 4. Carrying on video from last time, looking at development. We're now looking at coaching awards. So national governing bodies in charge of coaching awards. So they're there to help promote coaches, get further qualified, have deeper knowledge to develop the sport at all levels. So you might have level 1 here, qualification 2, 3, 4 and 5. So the purpose of that is, and obviously here you might have some community or scrum tactics or any amended rules and updates to keep the children safe or adults safe. And then also every team must have at least someone qualified if they're delivering sessions. It's for the safety of the students and the adults involved. And that's sort of your minimum requirement. If then you're going to move, if you then want to actually go, I want better, deeper knowledge, you might then say actually getting a level 2 qualification is going to be a bit more in depth. It's going to be a bit harder. There might be an exam involved because you're stepping up to a higher platform, and that's sort of maybe a semi-professional clubs or maybe someone a bit higher up in the local teams. Moving forward, they might say, right, actual level 3 might take you 2 years to complete level 3. You might have to go and get further experience, maybe with a professional club. But the reason that they're involved and they move up is a higher qualification. For example, maybe to be at a level 5, you might have to be linked to a professional club because you're going to be dealing with a high elite performers. And actually, you should have in-depth knowledge of the game, the rules, any changes of the rules, how to keep them safe. So that is one of the roles of the national governing body. The second one is looking at officials here. Okay, so the national governing body, maybe it's the FA, might say, right, we are short of linesmen and referees in under 12s, so they need to train and get some more people involved. Okay, and the same thing happens with officials. As a coach instructor, they might say, right, they're going to start off with junior football or junior rugby or junior hockey, refereeing or linesman. And then actually once they've done a year or 2, they might say, actually we want these to get higher qualified to then work their way up the leagues. Same as a coaching qualification. Because obviously the higher you go up, officials are going to be highly trained. So they'll go up their coaching, their officials qualification, because maybe when they get to elite, where they want to be, they might have to use different equipment, advanced equipment. So VAR, video replays, cameras, and so the higher you go, the more training you're going to have. And the national governing body's job is to train them to the highest level. So they might go away to the World Cups, and we'll send an elite referee, or 2 or 3. So that's one of the roles of the national governing body. Another one sort of linking back to development is the infrastructure. So yes, they've got to look after the players, but also how can they build the infrastructure? So how can they develop everything in the background for this level? So making sure that mass participation is happening, making sure it's fun, enjoyable, not boring. Make sure there's loads of tournaments running. The national governing body maybe supply certificates and medals. And likelihood is they'll link up with a county team. So actually the local clubs would then link into the county team and say, maybe put forward 2 of your best players and maybe go to schools and say, who's your couple of best players? Let's send them. So rather than go out and scout them, they'll ask us to send them. And then the infrastructure for the national team. So running tournaments, running county tournaments. So you're looking for the more elite players. So they might say, okay, what about travel? Are we going to supply kit for them? So it's the infrastructure, everything goes on in the background. Actually, we're going to link some more coaches. Infrastructure might say, actually, we're going to send these elite coaches down to the county teams to do some training. Okay, so they might represent England for the other countries. They've got to fly them there. So the infrastructure for the elite is a lot more demanding. Whereas on mass, it's about making it fun and enjoyable. So that's what infrastructure does. here we've got looking at, so role of the national governing bodies to look at rules, sort of the discipline, insurance, so things that go on in the background. So when you get a yellow card in, say in football, or a red card, the national governing bodies say you've broken the rules. A yellow card is a £15 fine. A red card is a £40 fine plus a 3-day ban. And it's not because they want to do it, so it's trying to make it a deterrent so foul play doesn't happen. But also, the money that goes here gets regenerated back through the football or through the rugby. The 3-day ban is more of a preventive measure. Actually, say you've broken the rules quite severely, you can't do that, so they'll give them a 3-game ban. So it's the national governing bodies rules, so they design the rules to make the sport as safe as possible. It's one of their jobs is to look after, to make sure players are legitimate and they're not cheating, maybe through drug taking. So make sure they turn up to drugs test. They might amend rules. They might say actually this offside rule is not quite working, let's change it, particularly the FA. They might say actually passing the ball forward from a centre kick was a bit silly, let's amend the rules. So they'll move with the times. So particularly in football, they're on about bringing in this VAR. For in rugby, they've had it in for quite a while. So football was probably a little bit behind the times at that point. So one of their roles, the national government, was actually we need to update our rules. And they have done as they're going. And then looking at the vision of the national team. So where do they want the drive of that team? Where do they want them to go? What do they want them to achieve and how are they going to go about achieving it? So the national governing body will say, right, where do you want England rugby to go? We want to be the top rugby team in the world. So our target is to win the next World Cup. So they give the drive and the vision to where they want to be. Pretty boring, but making sure that all the insurance is in place, all the documentation in place, people are signed on. People have got insurance just in case of injury or illness. So, but again, that's part of the national governing body if they're representing their country. And then last of all, it's about, they might be, national governing body is about helping create and design updating facilities. And I put a couple on here, so they might, and we'll look at funding a bit later, they might say, okay, how much money have you got to put towards this new stand or training facility? And the club might say, I've got £5,000. And the national RFU might say, actually, okay, if you've got £5,000, due to giving fines and other ways of funding we'll look at in a minute further on in the video, the RFU might say, okay, we'll match that and we'll give you £5,000 because it's going to raise participation levels. They might also help with the location. They might say, actually, we've already got a good facility nearby, let's relocate it somewhere else. Or maybe actually we've got a girls' football team near there that want to get involved. So they might link up with two clubs and say, actually, we'll look at a mutual location. And last of all, they might also suggest sort of how to make it inclusive. So how can we get it available to everyone? Maybe it's ramp access. So when you create a new facility, make sure it's accessible to all ages and disabilities. Or maybe it's actually, we might need a hoist in that swimming pool that we're building. If you want to build a new swimming pool, we're going to put some money towards it, but we want you to make sure it's disabled friendly.